today is going to be another beginner's fly tying tutorial lesson thing. I don't even know what I call these, but basically they're just for beginners, learning certain things. Today is going to be obviously on a whip finish tool and how to use it, and other types of ways of whip finishing, okay, including with your hand. So that's what today is going to be about. Let's go ahead and take a look at the whip finishers and discuss the different kinds. So we'll get into actually the use and what you do with them in order to basically tie knots. That's what they're used for, is to tie knots on the end of the flies, whip finish the fly, and finish off the thread so that way it's not going to unravel on you. So there's two main types of whip finishers, and then a couple others. So there's this kind, which is called the Matarelli, and I would say this is probably the most popular. And then there's also another one that is called the Thompson whip finisher. I don't have any of those. In fact, I don't have any other whip finishers other than this style. Now, there's some benefits and negatives to each type. And I think really, in reality, it's whatever you start with, you're probably going to end up using. This was the first whip finisher I ever got. This one, actually, this exact one here. And I never thought the need to get a different style unless I needed something a little smaller. I actually have a little tiny whip finisher. I can't find it right now, but it's for tiny midges. And then there's bigger ones for larger flies or getting in deeper. But you'll see what I mean once we actually get into how to use it. But each type works as the same. Basically, you've got a little hook or something that holds the thread, and then another one here. And once you move it, you're actually just spinning it up around the hook. All of them use the same. Now there's a couple others. One called a simple, which basically looks a lot like a Thompson style. And then of course you've got your hands. You can actually do a whip finish with your fingers. And I'll show you that in a minute as well. But let's get right into how to use it. I'm going to start with these styles, and then I'll show you kind of how to do it with the hand. Everyone has their own way. Some people will kind of wrap it, like this, and then try to grab it. And, I personally, I just catch it here, bring this down. And basically what you're looking for is a 4. You're going to make a 4 with the thread, as you can see. Now it's a sideways 4. But that's what you're making. You're kind of keeping it this way. And what you're doing, as you can see, once you do that, you want to kind of keep this part of the thread up against the hook shank. Okay? And then, as you can see, you are just rotating this around it. And what that does is it creates a knot. Okay? 2, 3, 4. Let's do a 4-turn whip finish. So as you can see, now that put a knot on. So what you're doing is you're taking the thread, you're doubling it up on itself, and you're wrapping it back up around it, keeping everything underneath basically those wraps. And then you can just seat it by pulling. You want to pull snug, and then go ahead and cut off your thread. And there you go, that is a whip finish. Now you might ask, what is the longer one for? All right, so the longer one, so for instance, if you come in with this one here, now this will work because you've got plenty of room. But let's say that this is a longer shank. It's down here. Once you're coming in, you've got this is going to get in the way. Or if you've got a lot of materials here and you need a little bit more distance, well, the problem is once you are trying to keep this thread down and you need to keep a lot of distance, go around a lot of materials, and not get caught up, this is going to be difficult. So what this is for, as you can see, you've got a lot more room, and see how far back I can bring this without much of an issue. Okay. Also, I can come back much further. I can go and whip finish way back here, as you can see. But that's what the longer one's for. So let's go ahead and do a whip finish. Look at me fraying my line. I'm not even paying attention here. I'm sitting here way back. I've got the camera about an arm's length reach from this to be able to film this properly at a wider angle. And so I'm trying to do this by keeping my arms all stretched out, trying to tie. It's really difficult. I can't really see what I'm doing. I'm looking through the... Anyway, that's all frayed. But as you can see, that's basically the whip finish. So I'm going to bring you in much tighter, and you can see how that actually turns around the hook. I'm going to grab another hook here. All right, guys, so as you can see, what's happening here, this is rotating up and around this. Now, like I said, you always want to go forward this direction, that way. Instead of wrapping back against itself like this, what you're going to do is create a knot that isn't going to seat properly. But if you go forward with it, up the shank like that, and then you're letting go of it there, keeping it on this section, and then you're pulling that back through underneath those wraps. And you can see that there when it seats. Now let me show you what happens if you go backward with it. And it'll work, don't get me wrong, but it won't create as nice of a, see, it's gonna, see that there? How that went back? See how much cleaner this whip finish is up front versus that? No matter how hard I seat that, that is always gonna have that piece that's gonna angle up over. So if you really want a good whip finish, I mean, that'll seat, that'll be fine. It might unravel a little bit on you over time if you go backwards like that. But what will happen is it'll just look funky. I mean, you could always cement that, put like some glue on that or whatever, and it should stay. It shouldn't come up. But it still doesn't look as good, obviously. And so that's why you go forward with it. Another thing to think about, if you've got, for instance, a flat thread. So let's go ahead and put this back on. So this is a flat thread. Now I'm using the brightest color thread I can get, and it's a rather thick thread, so that way you guys can see. But if I've got, so this is corded up really tight. All right, we'll do 2 whip finishes here. So this one is all corded up. You can see it's quite a, thicker thread. So you could do that, and that would be a pretty strong whip finish. But what you can also do, so take a look at that, and then let's start it back over that. You could spin your bobbin counterclockwise before you do a whip finish. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm spinning it, and I'm making a flat thread. All right, so you can see how that thread is flat, right? It's laying a little flatter. It's not corded up. So you can always whip finish under a flatter thread if you really want a thin whip finish. You can see that that seats a little bit thinner, a little bit flatter. Those are a couple little tricks. I am not the best with hand whip finishing, but let's give this a try. I'm going to pull you out a little bit. All right, so what you're doing is you're basically doing the same thing. You're holding it kind of like the other. So put your 2 fingers wide across. And by the way, you want something else, like a bodkin or something, and you'll see why in a second. Anything that is smaller, okay? And you can also, there's 2 ways of doing it. So as you can see, that's what I did. I have my 2 fingers here. I come up, hold that one, and now you can see I've created that 4 in a way, okay? There you go. So what you're doing is you're coming in and you're just, but see what I did there, because your fingers don't rotate. So you gotta, so you come down, right? So I made that one turn, and then I'm doing that, and I make another turn, and I like to hold it here because I'm not that coordinated. And so when I come down, see, I'm rotating my fingers like that. Okay. Now, what you could do, I see there's a lot of people that will just, and sorry, it's all blurry. Let me see if I can get it to, a lot of people that will come in and they'll just pinch here, okay? And then they can pull to make sure that that loop doesn't get all tangled up. So there's one way, okay? However, there's a better way. I think. But it depends what you think is better. It's a little longer. So what you want to do is you come in, you have that loop, and you grab it with something sharp, and then you can guide it in and pull it. And I think that that'll seat a little nicer if you do it that way. But it's not as quick, of course, so you can always just pinch and then pull. You pinch with whatever hand you want. Now, obviously, I am not the best when it comes to hand whip finishing. That is not my skill set. I can kind of make it happen, especially if I'm doing something where, like, the big whip finisher here won't reach in the back. Like if I got a big popper head or something, I got a whip finish behind it, and it just kind of, this gets in the way. That is something that I will hand whip finish over that because I can get my fingers up and around it. But I'm generally not the best with hand whip finishing. So I hope that helped, guys. I hope that was informative for you. Again, I'm sorry I don't have the Thompson style or simple style whip finishers. I only use either this style, Matarelli, I think that's how you pronounce it. Sorry if I'm butchering that pronunciation. Matarelli. I'm not Italian. I don't know. It sounds like an Italian word to me. So, but this is all I got. This one, and then of course my hands, and that's it. That's all I've got. So I wish I had some others to show you kind of how those work, but they're pretty much the same idea. As you can see, there's 2 points here and here that hold the thread, and it just, nice thing about these is they rotate, right? So this, as you can see, is rotating around. So you just rotate it around, and you, as you saw, and create the whip finish. Or you've got your hand that you got to then rotate. Well, the same thing with the others. Those rotate and allow you to basically whip finish in this similar way as this. So thanks for watching, guys. If you haven't already, go ahead and check out my Patreon. I have a lot of really good videos on there. All the same as here, but I always release them early there. I also have some extra benefits for signing up. For instance, you can join my once a month chat. I do a video chat with all my patrons, or the ones that can make it. And I also do discounts on flies that I tie and sell, so I can give you a discount if you're a patron of mine for some of the tiers. So there's quite a few perks on it, so go ahead and check it out. I will link it in the description section below. Other than that, thanks for watching, guys. I will see you on the next video. Now you go catch some fish.